I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my best buddy, Chief John Salka, and we're getting loaded up here for the holidays. And John, we always say this, how we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants with these shows. Oh, by the way, congratulations. We hit another 100,000 downloads, which is pretty cool. Podbeam actually sent us the little congratulatory message. So that's pretty cool.
Great. Yep.
Thank everybody that tunes in and shares this. John and I, we just have fun with this. We don't get paid to do this. We just have fun, man. It's just us talking shop like we love to do. But John, I got an idea for this one, especially with the holidays coming up. And we talked before about being at the Joey D seminar, the memorial seminar that Chief Joe puts on for his son. Joey, obviously one of your instructors from FDIC, Rescue 3 firefighter. We lost him as a result of Black Sunday. What a great guy. And Chief Joe, again, I'm going to say it again, he would not like to hear me call him the legend because legends don't like that, but he is an absolute legend. But that Friday night, John, at the conference we've talked about many times for on the show about the night before the teaching, where everybody gets together upstairs and they have a few drinks and a few sodas or a few beers or whatever. And then up at the podium, Chief Joe kicks it off and he has all the different guests come up and they start talking and telling the stories and some funny, some serious, but a lot of them are just, and I've said before, God, he should have been taping those. Well, maybe some of them, but I'm like, God, there was so much wisdom, so much in the area of cool stuff. And then I thought about you and I talk about some of the great moments in our career. And a lot of people will ask you, I know we've been traveling and people come on, so Chief Salka, what was one of your best moments? What was one of your toughest days? What was one of your best days and all that? And I thought, we just spent a little time here talking about maybe a little reminiscing about you've got 45 plus years in the fire service. I'm over 40 and it goes by fast. In the blink of an eye, I think it seemed like yesterday you were driving your Jeep, running to the firehouse in Mineola when they blow the legendary Mineola rooftop siren. It seems just like yesterday, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
And just, the stuff, the people and the moments. If we were going to start talking about some of the best moments, that we've witnessed or been part of our careers, I know I can go back. I've got a bunch. What would you say are some of the best moments career-wise? Because I have a couple personal stories I want you to tell as well. But
right.
What were some of your most exciting moments, or that where you were out of your mind excited about what was going on? Was it getting out of the FDNY or your first fire and the first time riding the rig in Mineola, or what was it?
You know what? I just put a pen to paper and I just wrote a couple of things down. Just little one-liners on ideas, and that was actually one of them. When I joined Mineola Fire Department out in Long Island, Valley outfit, where I lived, my little hometown that I was born and raised in, and I joined the volunteer fire department, and we talked about that before. I know it's different everywhere you go, but back then it was an election. You had to get voted in, but you had to be sponsored in first, And Billy Bowen, who later died tragically, I guess you could call it tragically. It wasn't an accident; it was a heart attack. But a very young man. He was an active Nassau County police officer going to work, and he had a heart attack, if I remember correctly. In the vehicle on the way to work. He wasn't even on duty, and he died. Nice guy. I wasn't really friends with him, but I was very friendly with him. He lived down the block. He was much older than me. I was a young kid, 18. He was a cop, and but he's the guy that sponsored me because he was my neighbor and he lived down the block, and you know he must have saw something he liked, right? So he sponsored me into the company, and then eventually, unlike America now with the volunteer fire service now is at a crossroads between continuing as volunteers or starting to get part paid guys in or paying guys maybe a couple of bucks for runs to keep them coming around or whatever. Another issue for another show. Actually, write that down. That's a good one. But back then it was full volunteer, and we had 3 companies in Mineola, and each one had 50 people, 50 members, and 50 members only, not 51. And if it was full, it was full, and they didn't accept any new members. And when somebody resigned, retired, died, or whatever, they would open it up, and whoever was next on the sheet that had put an application in. Anyway, my time eventually arrived, and they invited me to the meeting, and they voted. And they voted back then. This is 1976. They voted back then, maybe 75 even. I have to look at it. They voted back then by a black ball and a white ball. There was a wooden box. I can still see it. A square wooden box about not even 12 inches, maybe 10 inches square, 10 inches high. It was like a cube with a top on it. And the top simply had a little round hole in it. And they passed it around the room. They walked into the room. They introduced you. This is John Salka. Billy Bowen is his sponsor. He lives on Alberton Place. He's 18 years old. He's going to college. He's interested in joining the company. And they would pass it around, clink, clink, clink. Everybody in the room got to drop a ball in the box. And if there was, 30 guys there had to be 30 white balls. If there was one black ball, out the door you went.
Hence the phrase being blackballed. That's been around for a couple hundred years.
Right. Being blackballed, out the door you went. Which, listen, who your sponsor was meant as much as who you were, maybe more, right? You got a good sponsor, a good solid guy in the company. So I got in, and it's really, I'm sorry to take so long for a story, but and then they hand you a leather helmet like it was nothing back then. They were red.
Yeah.
The 3 companies had different helmets. Engine 1 had black helmets. Truck 2 had red helmets, and engine 3 had yellow helmets.
So let me get this straight. So when you were voted on as a volunteer, you were given a red helmet. So that meant you went to a truck company. Is that right?
Believe it or not, I guess. I was young and stupid.
So,
I did. I went to the truck company.
Our listeners,
that was Billy Bowen's truck. That was his company.
For all the times you've blown shit at me about being a truckie and all that stuff. So for all our listeners,
I must admit, I was a dope in the truck too.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the record, Chief John Salka started as a truckie
and rode on a tiller. And I'll tell you what, talk about fun, riding on a tiller rig. And obviously,
what kind of rig?
It was a 71, if I remember. It might have been a 72 Seagrave, 100-foot tiller with a beautiful. If you had the tiller cab, the cab that the tillerman sat in, if you had that on a tiller today, it would look like it was built for today. That's how modern it was back then.
Wow.
Otherwise, the rest of the rig looked pretty basic. But what was interesting was, obviously, there was 3 or 4 seats. No, I think there was just 2 seats because the motor was between the jump seats, right? So you had the cab, and then there was 2 jump seats. So 2 guys could jump on. Of course, 4 guys always did because one guy would sit, one guy would stand, right? But beyond that, you actually rode on the side step of the trailer, which was so cool. And Mineola had another great tradition. So if the siren went off and you're responding, the firehouse was in the middle of the block on Washington Avenue. Each end of the block was not a T intersection, but a regular 90-degree intersection with Willis Avenue and Mineola Boulevard. If you made the turn, if I was coming from home, I'd be coming off Willis Avenue. If I made the turn onto Washington Avenue and 58 and 58, what was the 165? If 165 was coming down the block, if I immediately pulled to the curb and jumped out of my car, they'd stop for you. Only on Washington Avenue. So that truck might go, stop for one guy, 2 guys, drive down the block, one, stop for the next guy. When he hit the corner, he was gone. You're not stop for any. But how cool. All you had to do was make the block. You just had to make the block, and you could jump on the side. And then there was like 9 sets of gear on both sides of the trailer in a nice covered, sort of curved top compartment. You open it up, put the helmet on, pull a coat on, and pull the boots out and put the boots on, and you can get dressed while you're responding, hanging on the damn side of the tractor of a tiller, going down Jericho. Let me tell you, it's exciting to talk about.
Do you still have that helmet by chance? Or did you have to turn it in when you left?
Oh, long gone, long gone. Had to
See,
turn it in. Yeah.
and I'm looking over my shoulder. I still have when I got on Justice when I was 18. I'd been an explorer and all that stuff. You know, Justice is on the south side of Chicago, southwest side, next to Bedford Park, where I had the honor of serving, and Bridgeview and Summit, Willow Springs, where I was a police officer. And in Justice, where I worked on the law enforcement side too. But I still have my first helmet, my first leather, with the back brim I had it flattened out, instead of curving out, it hit me on because the old bottles, were really high, flattened out. And I took the Eagle, which was all smashed up off the top from smashing windows and stuff. And remember, they used to make those brass or aluminum, they were almost like a high top. You could put a tall front piece on if you wanted to, but you screwed that in. You took the crunched up, smashed up aluminum one off, and a lot of Chicago guys, and that way you could take windows with your helmet, and the two coolest things was getting that helmet. I'm number 13, my favorite number. All right, number 13. And then cutting out that piece of diamond plate, John, for the back of my Daycor flashlight. The flashlight for our young guys used to carry in your hands, or you'd snap it on your truckman's belt. And on the back side, on the flat side of that big Daycor flashlight with the big giant battery in it and all that stuff, you would cut a piece of diamond plate and then bend it over the handle, screw it. So you could do the same thing. You could bust through sheetrock, you could bust windows. Like if you did, you'd break the handle. So you had the diamond plate.
Did you guys carry any tools? You're breaking shit with your helmet, flashlight?
Yeah, we carried tools. But I can remember the same thing. I remember staring at my gear on the gear rack going, this is it. Now, I also remember the very first fire I went to, I got trapped in 8639 South 87th Avenue, the Ridgewood apartment complex. Ridgewood apartment complex. It's building 1, big complex of Justice. Me, Eddie French was the officer, and he was the captain, and John Hazel. And the gangbangers there, John, were starting fires in the basements, in the laundry rooms, and the storage rooms, because it would run each floor, right? So you'd have fire in each floor when you got there at 5 a.m. So we get to the 3rd floor. We're up there. There's fire out to the hallway because the door's open to the unit. And Jimmy Colin, good guy. He was the driver. 5 a.m, kind of cobwebs in the head. He's pumping, and we used to take this long 300-foot pre-connect off the back to make it all the way into that top floor. And we're Eddie French, no air pack on, front piece, or not front piece, but his leather helmet all smushed up in front, missing half his teeth. He's yelling on the radio to charge a line. And I remember they're 551 lines charge, and no water's coming, and it's getting hotter, and the fire's rolling down, and he's yelling, and the water's on the way. We kept getting this water's on the way, and I'm like, and then I hear a thud behind me, and the fire burned through the door behind us. So I remember John Hazlett flipping the dry hose line, kind of trying to flip it against the molding on the floor away, because the fire was starting to burn. And I'm going, this is my first fire. I'm so hot, John. I'm screaming in my mask going, what the hell am I doing here? And Richie Spar was the captain, engine 523, pulls up, and he kind of runs over to the first engine. And what had happened was Jimmy Colin, good guy, but in the morning, instead of charging the right rear discharge, he charged the left rear, which was capped. So he kept yelling, and he was like, it's going. But I'm like, no, it's not. So Richie looks at the pump panel, pulls the knob, water goes up. I remember spraying water over my head, like frantically going, what? I even told my dad, I said, holy crap, I'm not so sure, but I'll say this, it was one of the coolest moments of my career for a learning experience about pushing in too far, having an officer not wearing his BA on his back, and all this stuff, and so on and so forth.
My goodness.
But for the first fire, it was like and John, I'll tell you another moment. When I graduated paramedic school, out of all the certifications, degrees, everything else that I've worked hard towards, that was the hardest, because I was a jock in high school. I didn't take math. I had to have my buddy Jack Azzarello, his wife was a nurse, help me study for pharmacology. It was like months and months and months of just, God, busting my ass. And I just remember graduating, John, and with the first time I'm in the back of the ambulance by myself, I'm just saying, it was just, I wanted to be Johnny Gage from Emergency, and I was. And it was just such a cool moment, and that wrapped me into, all of a sudden now I'm working for Bill Allen. You've heard me talk about Bill as my lieutenant. And that's why I started thinking today about all these really cool moments. I'm going, golly, man. I mean, just so when you got on, tell me the feeling. I know what you went through. We've told that story before, how you got in the FDNY, but lifelong dream. That's what you wanted. You were down in Titusville, great fire department in Florida for a short time. I mean, the phone call, I mean, we always talk about, you remember the phone call, but when you knew you had when you were starting the academy, the academy for the FDNY, I know what I felt like when I started. I mean, that just had to be, I've never heard anybody really talk about it. I've never heard anybody say, well, I remember when I first got in the academy. You hear Marines say, I remember when I got the parasite, stepped off the bus and stood on those 2 yellow feet on the ground. You hear that all the time. But I don't hear that many guys talk about my first day in the Chicago Fire Academy, or what it was like, the energy when you first getting out of your Jeep, your car, going, this is it, man. I mean, the excitement had to be incredible.
I remember. I'm going to show you that.
Oh, good God. So John showed me a picture of them being sworn in.
You see me?
Look at you, coat and tie.
Everybody's supposed to wear a coat and tie. You're told to wear a coat and tie. You wear a coat and tie. Everything looked at right. And this is my buddy Van Johnson, who provides. He's a big volley out in Long Island too. He's retired now. He drove. He drove some big shot Chiefs towards the end of his career.
What? So I'm glad you got
killed in a line of duty right here. He died. Oh. He died he burned to death right here.
Oh.
He was a captain in Brooklyn at a collapse. Him and a couple of guys got trapped and burned. Tough.
Well, so for our listeners, John just showed me a picture of him being sworn in. All of them standing there with their hands up in the air, being sworn in to start everything. I'm glad you figured out how to use a comb and how to get your hair cut, because you look like a damn
man. My hair was long. You could hardly see my
God, man.
I do remember arriving there. I remember going to the. Now you see, back then, that's 1979. Back in the 70s, when you got sworn in, that was a big day. Families came and everything else. You're all dressed up. There's people all in the other seats. Up on the balcony watching and clapping and all this other stuff. Now they don't do that in the FDNY anymore. Now when you get sworn in, they tell them no families, no nothing. Just show up with a. I think they just have to show up with like a button-down shirt and trousers, right? Be clean shaven and I don't think they tell me the exact haircut yet until I get there. But it's not an event. It's not a success. It's not a job. They tell them you're not on the job yet. You're sworn in, so you're protected by insurance during training. If you don't make it do training, we just throw the paperwork away and we send you to the front gate, and that's it. When you graduate, then they have a graduation day, and that's when the families all come down.
And your class,
and they call it family day, and they do a whole big things, climbing on scaling ladders and rappelling and stuff like that. They do a big thing. But back then, day one was day one. And I remember walking into the academy. It was still hard to believe. FDNY Academy, reading all the plaques and look at the pictures on the walls and the rigs parked outside. It's exciting, as I said a minute ago about the last story I told. It's exciting to talk about. Now, Mineola was my first fire department that I ever got on. And, of course, Titusville, Florida was my second. FDNY was the third fire department I got on.
Oh God, I know, and it's fun because you were in Titusville for a short time, and you still talk so highly of them.
Oh, it was such a great. Now there's a place that I got the phone call. Yeah, I didn't get a phone call for FDNY. FDNY, you're hearing about it, watching. You're buying the Civil Service newspaper. The Chief is the name of that newspaper, and it's got all the lists every week. So out once a week, and every week it's got all the lists: sanitation, sanitation department list, Port Authority list, and FDNY list. And it would say, okay, FDNY's estimating another 300-man class coming up, and here's the next, 400 names. If you can see your name on there, they would always post a list with the numbers and everything. Oh, saw your name with your number. My number was 1668 for FDNY. 1,668 was my list number. But to get back to Titusville for a minute, there's a place that I got a phone call. That's the only place of all the fire departments I've been in that I got a phone call. And I remember Richie Bonnet's my friend. We were both volleys in Mineola. We both got on a job. He got on a job as well with me in the FDNY. But we both went down to Titusville, Florida. Actually, we drove down and went to the Florida State Fire Academy in Ocala, which was a 200-hour class. It was like a month long. And even back then, we're talking 1976, 77, there was a rigid, a stringent state-given physical test that you had to take to be a firefighter in Florida. And when you went to the Ocala Fire Academy, not only did they teach you all about being a firefighter, but they also ran you every day and did sit-ups and pull-ups, the exact mirror of the actual physical you had to take, they gave to you. So when you took it, it was a bunt. So we graduated Ocala. We both had our 200-hour certificates. We started looking, you buy the newspaper. You look under help wanted. You look under F for firefighter. There's places there listing firefighters, test to be given. And we started traveling around. We took Tampa. We took Titusville. We took couple of counties. And anyway, we took Titusville. There was about 20 guys showed up. And I specifically remember this. They told us, okay, they told you what to bring when you came. You had to bring your shorts and sneakers and t-shirt. They said, we're not going to give you the written test yet. We're going to give you the physical first. More people fail the physical than the written. So they gave us the physical test that first day. We were down to like 7 guys out of 20 that passed. All 7 were guys that we went to school with in Ocala. They all came from this class that we were just with. And Rich Bonas and I got hired. We got hired there. And I remember we were staying in a little local motel because we didn't live there. We were staying in a little local. We had this big, gigantic pamphlet of all our accomplishments from where? From Mineola. Ladder truck chauffeur, all the different schools that we had under our belt, ladder company operations, forcible entry, had all that stuff on Mineola letterhead. And we got hired. I remember it was a phone call. All of a sudden the phone rings. Bonas answers it. Yes. Hi, Chief. How are you? Good. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'd be honored. Yeah. Yes, he's here. Hold on. He hands me the phone and he said, what? Well, you're going to be a fireman. I remember that. You're going to be a fireman. That was Richard Cherry was the guy's name. He was a big old Southern boy. Now, not big, fat, husky guy like you. Fit as a fiddle, but like a rock. And he just passed away recently. He was a great guy. And they hired us, and off we went.
So you like I said, I remember walking in the first time. I used to sit in front of Bedford Park's main firehouse, which was down the street from my Valley house in Justice. And I used to sit there like at midnight, just staring at the rigs going, God, one day, please let me just, one day, just, I
they were inside saying, yeah, that kid's out there.
I used to dream about that. And they let me do my provisional write-offs for paramedicine there as a paramedic. So I got to work with them and all that. So I got to know the guys there. And I used to just sit there. That's why I told you when we drove the ladder truck home from South Blooming Grove back to Wichita West, John, I'm telling you, I had a moment when I sat behind the wheel and looked at that Seagrave emblem on that steering wheel on the horn, in the middle of the steering wheel. I remember sitting in those rigs going, one day, man, one day. And that one day came, and oh my God, I could still remember that. I could still remember, there's so many things that were so many, there's always little bumps you hit here and there, but so many fun times. I can't imagine the excitement of you walking into Rescue 3, your first day being assigned to Rescue 3.
Oh my God. You know what? I didn't even have that written down here. That
Rescue 3.
That's a story in itself. Now, when you're on the FDNY, engine, truck, whatever you're in, right? Obviously, there's only 5 rescues. It's a special operations. But you need to know that that's a pretty special thing. Before there was such a thing as special operations, there was just special units, and it was like, holy shit, could you imagine going to a rescue? Now, where I went to 34 engine, slowest engine in Manhattan. I got right out of there as fast as I could, which took me about a year. And I went to 11 truck, which was a super duper fantastic place. That's where I became a fireman. Met some great guys there. Some guys I'm still friendly with, Marty Monahan and others. But then I was there for a couple of years, and it was as busy as it was, as good as the fires were. A couple of guys from that place had gone to Rescue 1, had gone to Rescue 2, and it was like that was like going from a firefighter to a rescue company was like dreaming of getting on the FDNY. It was almost the same kind of a feeling, like, holy shit, if I can get into a rescue,
It's got to be it's got to be like a college football player getting drafted.
Right.
By the Chicago Bears.
You're already talented. You're already skilled. You're already a legitimate football player. You're already playing the game, but you're going to get to the next level. And that's exactly what it was. And that's not a knock against any truck, because there are guys probably laughing, listening to this right now, saying, screw you and your rescue shit. I was in the best truck in the job, and no rescue guy's better than us. And they're right. But wanting to go to the rescue is something I wanted to do. And I did. So I finally went up there, and they call it the blue stool interview. You call up Captain a couple of times. He finally says, all right, why don't you come up? We'll sit down. And blue is the color of the rescue front piece. So everything is, So you go up there and you talk, so what are you doing? Where you work? What do you want to do? By then I had 2 medals. I had 2 medals on my chest from 11 truck. Oh. Unbelievable, which is unheard of. Less than 5 years on a job, right? And along with being an 11 truck, which was well known at that time in the job, you know, even though Rescue 3 didn't go down there, they knew 11 truck was a busy outfit, and blah, 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 blah. So I must have presented myself well. I got on the list, and there's a list there, just like everywhere else. You to go to the front if he likes you better or not. Then they pretty much put you on the list. And I guess there were a lot of guys retiring at the time. Must have been the old school was starting to go, you know, and new guys were coming in. Nick Giordano got in, and all these other young guys got in. And I remember stopping there occasionally. I'd have to practically drive past Rescue 3 to go home from 11 truck. And one day I stopped there on the way home, and Jack McKeon was working. The fireboat McKeon is named after his dad.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, his dad could have been his uncle, but it was his relative. And anyway,
As soon as you said that name, I knew it.
Yep. And he was working at day. Oh, Salka, yeah, I recognize the name. I think you're on the list. Yeah. I said, listen, the captain told me to stop by once in a while. I don't mean to bother you. No, come on upstairs, kid. Sit down. You know what? We just had 2 guys retire. Let me see what the captain's got going here, you know, and hold on a second. Let me give him a call. And he walks out of the room. He comes back about 5 minutes later. Well, you're in. I'm like, what? He said, I just talked to the captain. You're in. We'll send the paperwork through. And let's see, what's today? Like Tuesday? Probably around Friday. Around Friday, you'll get the detail slip down there. When you go to work next time, they'll probably have the detail slip in the battalion.
Oh, God.
I'm like, that's it. He said, that's it. You'll be here for a detail on an onion skin, they called it. Onion skin. You know the onion skin paper?
Yeah.
You ever see that?
Yeah.
That paper that you can almost see through. That's why they call it an onion skin, because that's how it usually came down. To, you know, from rescue company, firefighter John Salka, 11, badge so-and-so will be detailed 2, rescue company 3, and it's on an onion skin. So it's a detail. It's temporary.
What was it like putting the front piece on your helmet, though?
Well, I didn't put the front piece.
You didn't?
My first day there, I wasn't sure about what to do. Do you put the front piece on? Do you not put the front piece on? I think my first couple of tours I worked without the front piece. And then one of the lieutenants, I can't remember who it was, said, what are you doing with that? Well, sometimes the captain, he said, that's all. We're putting a front piece on. So they went upstairs and grabbed one out of the office. They had them up there, you know?
Yeah.
And they gave me one. And it was pretty cool. All of a sudden, there I am looking at my black helmet from 11 truck, taking a little 11 insert out. For those of you that are listening, you know, in the FDNY, we get a big black front piece. And in the middle is a square. A lot of people do it now. They're very
your badge number underneath, or your badge number, right?
It's just a square leather insert that goes in, and it's, you know, yellow for the squad with white numbers, red for the truck with white numbers, black for the engine with white numbers, and for the rescue, of course, it's blue with the white, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on it. So I got the blue one with the white number 3 on it, and it's the 3 with the straight bar across the top, you know, and then the angle down, and then I put it on, and the rest is history, man.
Oh God, I just. You know, I mean, I thought about that when you're talking about this, because I remember screwing, you know, the battalion chief goalie front piece, you know, on my helmet, and it's, you know, it's one of those moments. I don't want to say it's necessarily egotistical, pat myself in the back moment, but it's a cool moment. It's just it's like the first time you put your gear on, the first time you wear that uniform. I think sometimes, John, we play this whole modesty thing so much that we don't enjoy the moment. You know what I'm saying? We don't, you know, so many people when we're in classes, and I'll ask guys, right? When you and I, we go out to dinner with some great people, we're traveling, and we'll get an old timer with us. I go, so what was it like back then? Do you remember your best? And I just want to hear the stories. I want to hear them talk about, you know, oh Jesus, well, I remember when we did, you know, just, and I think so many, we're just so hell bent on, you know, I'm just doing my job. I'm just, you know, the whole modesty thing, that I don't think people are finding their moment. You know what I'm saying? And I guess there'd be a message right there. If there's young firefighters listening to this, find your moments, man. We're talking about the best moments right now. I think that's what we should call this show, the best moments. Find your moment. I mean, whether it's hiring, whether it was a particular job you were on, or a boss you worked for, or
right.
You know,
I'll tell you another thing that happened. Not much happened when I was in 34 engine. 34 engine was the slowest engine in Manhattan in 1979, the year I got assigned there, and I got right out of there as fast as I could. Pete Riccardi was the big Italian guy with a very high voice. Pete Riccardi, like that. He was very high voice. He was the Manhattan trustee for the whole borough of Manhattan. He was the union delegate, right? And he got me out. Somehow he got me to 11 truck. Don't ask me how he did it. He owed me nothing. I knew nobody. Nobody knew me. But before I left 34 Engine was right in Midtown Manhattan. You could see the Empire State Building when you stepped out of quarters. You could look up and see it in the sky. It was beautiful. There was a little heliport right there that the presidents would land at when they came to Midtown Manhattan.
Okay.
And one day I was working when Ronald Reagan came.
Oh, your hero.
Oh, I'm telling you,
Your
Ronald
hero.
Reagan came to down. So we had full gear on. Of course, it was just boots, coat, and helmet, and an SCBA. And we had a line stretched in through the fence. It was a fenced off area, and 3 sides were fenced. The 4th side was the bulkhead and the Hudson River. So it came in right off the river and landed right on the blacktop. The first one landed, let the press out. The second helicopter lands, is the president, right? Secret Service are there. The cars are already there. The doors are open. You can see the machine guns and stuff in the pockets on the doors, and helicopter comes in. Ronald Reagan steps off. What does he do? Nope. They're trying to usher him into that limousine. Nope. He walks around the limousine, comes around to us, and comes right down the line, shaking hands. All the way
How
down
awesome is that?
Rescue 1 was there. I remember Barry Mead was there. The guy whose book I read, I comment about, the fireman.
Yeah.
George Crucia was there. A photographer was there from the New York Times, took the picture, made the front page of the New York Times.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the few faces that's not in the picture, but my hand is in Ronald Reagan's hand for the picture.
Oh, God.
Yep.
What
a great, and that was one of the best things ever happened to me when I was in 34 Engine. I met Ronald Reagan.
That's like you and I meeting Colin Powell, while teaching at FDIC, with him being in our our own hotel. Oh God, your hero. I just, I mean, there's so many, riding out with Eddie Enright in the 3rd Battalion in Chicago, riding out with Ray Hoff on Ray, best man at our wedding. His wife Barb was my wife's maid of honor, on Tower Ladder 10 when Tower Ladder 10 was.
His wife was the maid of honor too?
Yeah, Barb.
Oh, no,
yeah.
I didn't know that. You've said it a million
Ray
times
was my best man. Barb was, they just wonderful people, great family people. But I ride with Ray on Tower Ladder 10. And then when he made, battalion, we were in the 4th Battalion, and just, and things he would do, John, when I was supposed to be riding out with him. Like I missed the Paxton Hotel fire, that was traumatic for me because it was a bad fire, but I would have been there with my video camera. But I can remember I'd fall asleep in my recliner because I was up all night with my own fire, and I'd wake up and I'd hear the scanner going, and I hear him go, Battalion 4 to Maine, an update. And they go ahead, Battalion 4. Okay, I got a 400 by 500 1-story warehouse. We got multiple lines operating, Tower Ladder, and he was getting ready to turn things over to the deputy district chief when he got there because they boxed it. And he'd finish his whole transmission, John, and they'd go, Battalion 4 must receive. And he'd go, "Are you listening, Rick?" He would say that on the radio to bust my chops. And he would do that. He did like 3 times just so he'd get you another job. And I'm like, son of a. So I beat ass to get there. It's like 20 minutes from my house. I get there and we don't catch another fire the rest of the night. And I'm like,
Of course.
but he on the radio, the whole, "Are you listening, Rick?" But I just,
I tell you, another great who I met story is, now this goes all the way up to battalion chief now. It's 2001 at Ground Zero at the Pile. I'm there one night in the rescue battalion, and John Norman had asked me to stay in the rescue battalion for a couple of months after 9/11 because I think 3 of the 4 chiefs got killed, and I did. I said, as long as I can go back to the 1A. I was a chief for 6 years on 9/11. I was already in the 18th battalion, but so there we are, and all of a sudden word starts to spread. Hey, Bush is coming. What? Yeah, the president's coming tonight, because they would keep that quiet right until he was coming, right until an hour before, and sure enough, he comes, and it was a gigantic crowd. It was a mob scene, and of course, all the workers, not just firemen, cops, construction workers, everybody who was there was working. All of a sudden, everybody started to form up now, right? And they have a line. He's going to come right down this line, like a greeting line. But he was the one that was moving. Everybody else was standing still. And another great picture in the newspaper of the guy who's with me is shaking his hand. And so you see the back of George Bush's head and this little bit of a side profile, and me standing there with my 18th Battalion helmet on and my coat on, right next to him. Great image.
God, how cool. How cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I'll say it again to our listeners, especially to the young listeners that are out there, the future of the fire service, your future is now. Again, find your moments. The stuff we're talking about, don't just blow them off. I mean, it sometimes, you got to kind of register a good moment to remember it as a good moment later on, because there's going to be enough things in your life going on that are going to suck, because of the job and because of life happens, right? And there's sometimes you need to think back. John, I do it, all the years in Louisville, just under 12, you know, Terry reminds me, our good friend Terry McGrath will remind me of some great things. Because I tend to focus on, God, I wish I'd done this better. I wish I'd done that differently. Why did I say that? There's things I wish I could go back and change. You tend to forget all the good times. You tend to forget all those moments, of, for me, what some of my best moments were, John, as fire chief, was making the phone call. That was my thing. When it was promotion time, when somebody made the announcement, they come in, they're going to retire. I couldn't wait. I used to say, look, this is something that I'm going to do. I'm calling so-and-so and I'm going to tell them, hey,
Right.
I remember Darren Murray, he was like 2 days away from the list expiring. I mean, it was like, it was going to expire. And I remember calling him on a Saturday morning and I felt bad because it was early. His wife, who's a darling, she answered the phone and I said, I hope I didn't. Oh, no, we've been up, which I found out later. No, they weren't, And I said, can I talk to Darren? Sure, chief. I said, are you sure? She said, no, we've been up. So I can, you can tell when somebody's been, hey, I said, hey, Darren, I said, hey, I just wanted to call you. The driver engineers list is getting ready to expire and you're sitting number one. And I've been staring at it going, God, I just hate to see people die on the list and all that. And I just feel bad, buddy. And he goes, well, chief, no, it's understandable. And blah, blah, blah. I think he said, I'm going to try hard on the next one again. I said, well, you probably don't need to think about that because, Butch Flanagan, or not Butch, it was Calvin Allison said he's retiring and you're getting promoted because of that to driver engineer. And it was silent. And I just, those moments, John, Gary Apple, you remember Gary, right? You love Gary Apple.
Picture Gary Apple hanging in my office 10 feet from me.
Gary Apple riding out in the 18th Battalion with you, retired as a captain. He and Brian Purcell, Rick Downey, some of my favorite firefighters. I remember when Butch came in, 35-year captain, and said, Chief, it's time. And I loved Butch. You know how much I admire Butch. What a great, I use your phrase all the time. You could send a problem firefighter out to Firehouse 6 to Butch Flanagan, the captain. 6 months later, I don't know what you would say, I don't know what he put in him or took out of him, but he fixed them. He sent them back all squared away. Butch was just great. So he comes in. I said, well, tell you what. I said, you got to do me a favor, because Gary had tested, a great guy. And it just seemed like he always ended up number 1 or 2. And there was just one out of openings, test after test. He's sitting number 1, John. I said, Butch, do me a favor, because there was nobody talking about retiring. And Butch wasn't either. He just came in and said, it's time. I said, how about you call him? How about you call Gary? How about you call him, Butch? He goes, I said, yeah, because I had just as much fun with that, John. So in my office, he calls him on his cell phone. He goes, Apple, Butch. Hey, I'm done, buddy. I'm done. Chief wanted me to call you, tell you I'm retiring. You're next up. You're gonna get driver. I just want to be the one to tell. I'm like, I got emotional just watching him tell him. So we're having coffee, just visiting. 10 minutes later, and Gary had been running a landscaping business. 10 minutes later, I look at Butch and I are still talking. He's standing at my door. He's soaking wet, sweating from being outside. He's covered in grass clippings. He goes, this better not be an effing joke. He goes, you better not be effing with me. He goes, this. I go, Gary, it's true, man. And just to see his expression, Daryl Brown, when Daryl made battalion chief as a captain, Daryl's the chief in Grapevine, he actually collapsed and Tim Tittle had to go. I called Daryl in to tell him when he made it. And he actually, John, Tim grabbed him. He actually collapsed. You think, right, you're studying and you're praying and you're talking to God and you're doing you've done it umpteen times. And for me, those were some of my moments, because sometimes being a fire chief sucks, man. It sucks with some of the things you have to deal with. And to be able to do that, to know how hard guys have worked to get promoted, the studying and the time on the job, especially good men and women, right? They're just, you're beaming for them, because you're so excited. Plus, that's the future of your fire department, standard fire. You've talked about before when you see guys who are captains and chiefs now that were probies for you. It's just one of those special moments.
So let's shift gears. Your first rescue.
Oh God. First one was we had responded mutually. I was on a truck with truck 79, it's kind of the same ladder truck you gave us. All right. We used to respond automatic aid from Bedford Park to a lot of towns around Summit, Bridgeview, Justice. So it's one, and I think I tell you the story. This is a search question or point. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. We go to Bridgeview on 79th Street next to Kmart. There's these 3-story apartment buildings, okay, with dual stairwells. Anyway, we get there with a truck assigned to the scene. Bridgeview have a truck. We pull up. There's fire out the 3rd floor balcony, and me and John Sautier, Peterson, the shift commander, yells at us, "Search the building." And I look, I'm like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. What do you mean search the building? We should be up there pulling ceiling and doing. I'm like, really? I don't get this. It's sunny outside. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Blue sky. So I'm like, it's 1:30. What the hell are we searching about? And I go, search. He goes, search the goddamn building. I went, oh, okay. He yelled at everybody. So me and John, we go up Sautier. We go the 2 stairwells, right? There's a front stairwell and a back stairwell. We go up the back stairwell. And while I mask up pretty quick. He's masked up. I force the door to the apartment next to it, right? Take a quick duck in there and look at the layout because it's going to be reversed. We forced it. And the whole time, John, I'm going, really? Search the building, search. I'm like, really? So we force the door. We push in, and right there, that's the kitchen, right? We get like 6 feet in there. And I go, boom. I go, we got a guy. We got a victim. Down. This guy was wearing, he's wearing just his blue jeans. Apparently he was in bed, a night worker, right? A day sleeper, stood up. The smoke took him down, boom, down he went. So I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, I cannot believe there's a victim in here. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. We get him out of the hallway. The guys from Bridgeview grab him. I mean, I'm holding on to his legs. They go, we got him. My badge number was 22. We got him too. And they took him all the way down the stairs, got him outside. He made it for a while, then he passed, but I'll never forget, I was more overcome, John, with, I can't believe there's somebody in at 1:30 in the afternoon instead of we just drug somebody out, because you don't think about that. It's like, and then later on the emotion hits you, and actually, let me back up. I'm sorry. First one, I tell this story, Eddie Gergitz and I, we're at the Firehouse in Justice, 5:30 night. We're doing our part-time shifts, right? And the call comes in, you can hear the speaker, right? The phone call. House fire, east side of town, back by the firehouse. Kid trapped, 2nd floor, bedroom on the right. Bedroom, the whole way there, they're telling us, right? We got a kid, trapped on the 2nd floor, bedroom. We get there, there's smoke showing. I grab the nozzle because I'm bigger than Eddie. Eddie's a good guy. Ricky Simmons is our officer. We get in there, I get up the stairs. One of our sergeants, who was a volunteer at the time, he's on the stairwell laying there with a garden hose in one hand. I always say with a donut in the other. And he's trying to spray water. They're all yelling. So we get up there. I'm thinking a kid, right? A kid. And I hit the fire. We take a window. The smoke starts to lift. And Eddie's on his knees next to his bed with his flashlight going up this kid's body. But it was a 20-year-old kid, 220 pounds, was in his bedroom doing drugs, laid down in his bed, poured gasoline on himself, and set himself on fire. You remember this whole story. So I go over. I'm trying to help Eddie. We're trying to get him out of bed. He's in a water bed. It's a story for another day, about why the waterbed didn't burst, the whole burn cup thing I talk about. And we're trying to pull him. He's slipping because he's burned. The waterman, we get him outside. I'll never forget. I don't know how Phil Cole started 2 lines in this guy, as burned up as he was. He lived to about 3:45 in the morning. But I tell you, John, I'm thinking of a kid, the mindset, a kid.
Right.
I'm thinking of a kid, and it was a 20-year-old kid.
It was somebody's son, right?
So that was actually before the one,
So there's a couple already, right? I mean, a lot of people in the fire service never get involved in a single rescue. It's not a common occurrence,
Oh, it's and
I mean, I was lucky too. Where was I? In 11 truck, that place that I got to, right?
Yeah.
I was still a 4th grade firefighter, right? And Sunday morning, checking a rig, coffee, again, beautiful day. And all of a sudden, a run comes in. Not too far away, maybe 5 blocks away, on Houston Street. Houston Street's the major avenue there. It's like two lanes in each direction and an island in the middle. And this is a crappy neighborhood. Now, the Lower East Side was still pretty shitty back then. And it was an intersection job. It was a building corner. Apparently, a lot of people were there already because it was a day fire, because it was 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and a lot of people were home. there was a big crowd in the street already around the building. And we come screaming in with the sirens going and all that. And the crowd sort of just like, you ever see that the Grinch That Stole Christmas, when they come down with the sled down to Whoville, and there's a big crowd of people, and the people just go whoop, and they open up and they slide in with the sleigh. We did the same thing. Sirens blasted. All of a sudden, the crowd just sort of separated. We rolled in with the two rigs, 2811, jumped off the rig, up we go, smoke showing out the front fire escape, and my lieutenant, I'll think of his name in a minute. The three of us go up there. I can't even remember who was the other guy working. I can't even remember who was the irons guy. The can and the irons. I obviously had the can. I was the 4th grade firefighter, and Jerry Kelly was the lieutenant. And we get up there, stairs to the rear, get to the top, make the U-turn. It was the rear door. In we go, and making our way through, we railroad apartment through each room, going straight, and then we get to the front room, which is where the fire was. We go in. Jerry Kelly goes to the left, and I go to the right, and there's a bed right there. Reach up on the bed, boom, little baby. I got a little baby in my hands, like a 3-year-old, maybe 2 years old. I used to remember the name. I have it in my book, in my newspaper clippings. Grabbed her. I was like, holy shit, I got a baby. I got a victim, right? And we went right to the front window. There's a couple of guys. OV had come up the front, was taking the front windows now. The engine was coming in behind us. We went right over to the window. I handed the baby right out to the OV. And he carried the baby down like one fire escape balcony down, and 18 truck put the towel ladder up, which I was later a lieutenant in 18 truck. They put the towel ladder up and put the baby in, and I never did see the baby again. I saw it for 15 seconds from when I found it in the bed, which was burning, and I brought it to the front and handed it out, and there was some discussion about the guy in the fire escape wanted to get credit for the rescue because he brought the baby down, but everything ended up being fine. I ended up getting a medal for that, which was pretty good. The division commander wrote the fact that I was a 4th grade firefighter, blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing what I was told, and worked out.
What you were trained to do, what you were told. And so there's two things I want you to talk about before we finish things out here. Okay. One is, and I know, like I said, I use this phrase for you all the time. A lion doesn't have to tell you he's a lion. John Salka doesn't go, and then I was crawling down the hallway. I'm the one that talks about the fact that, you'll say things like, yeah, when I was captain of 40 engine, we never went less than 6,000 runs a year. And you say that because, look, we never dipped under 6,000 runs a year and we still had time to train. So stop your bullshit that you can't train, that kind of thing. Right. There's always time to train. And I'm the one that goes, yeah. And that was like 10 fires a day back then. And, the Bronx was burning all that stuff. One of the other things I talk about, and again, you like Chief Joe and like the Pete Ganseys and the Ray Downeys and the Patty Browns and all those, the Butchie Cobbs and the Mickey Conboys, and I can just go on and on. Talk briefly. You received, this is historical, you received the Bell Club's first medal for valor, didn't you? I would think that was the first medal, because I remember when they honored you when you retired, they told me the whole story. John Salka, Chief Salka, was one of the first recipients or the first recipient. Just, take us through that incident briefly here, as to what got you to that point, because it also we also tied to our Mayday classes as well.
True. It was, 84 was the first time they gave that medal out. The Fire Bell Club sponsored, and to this day they do that medal. Actually, a bunch of people I know have gotten that medal since then.
Oh, very cool.
Which is pretty interesting, including Gillespie, the guy who's down in North Charleston with Brian. So, what happened at that fire was I was working an 11 truck, and we went to a second alarm on, again, I forget, I think 21st Street, maybe, way out of our response area. Very nice upper class neighborhood. And we went on a second alarm. Gene Doctor was a deputy. I remember him. He was very, very bright, organized, professional, knowledgeable deputy. And we got there, and they sent us up to, I think they originally sent us up to the top floor. It was a 6-story, like a new law tenement. There was several of them connected to each other. Apparently, it was an old Civil War prison at one time. But anyway, they sent us up, and from the front, it looked like a 6-story building, but actually it was 7. They had extended the roof. They had popped the roof up a little bit in the middle and made another hallway and some rooms, but you couldn't see it from the street. So, because we didn't count, which was a mistake, we just walked up the stairs until we got to the top floor. So we ended up on that little 7th floor. And we ran into trouble up there. It was very smoky. This fire it was a renovated building. Fire going through all the walls and everywhere, and on like 5 different floors. Ended up being like a 5th alarm. So we get up there, and again, I was with Jerry Kelly again, and Freddie Schwartzrock was the show for the senior man. And somehow, I don't know how I got separated. We were going down opposite ends of the hallway. Somehow I stumbled on him. He was like semi-conscious on the floor already, with his mask off, and he was a big boy. I didn't have a radio. I couldn't call for help. I should have remembered he had a radio and used his, but I didn't. And I tried.
This is back when not everybody had a radio, right? When we talk about
I was one
radios.
I was one of them. So he was at a doorway that he was apparently trying to force. I tried to force it. Turns out those seventh floor doorways were not really openable. It was a duplex. The 6th floor below and the 7th floor were part of the same apartment. And they had a nice little stairway that went up to the top. And most people had beds or dressers and stuff in front of it and just used the top floor as a bedroom that they accessed from the floor below, which is the way they went in and out. So we were trying to force a door that wasn't going to open anyway. I eventually started running low on air. I started sharing my air with Freddie, which was, I still think to this day, wasn't a bad idea because I was helping him. But it turns out it was a bad idea. Now that both of us ended up messed up. And somehow Jerry Kelly came. I was yelling for help, I think, and they found us. And I remember telling him, call him Mayday, and he did. And of course, nothing happened when he called him Mayday because it was such a gigantic job with so many people. We didn't really know where we were. Took a long time for people to get there. Finally, we did get Freddie out. So in the end, it did work out. They got me out, then we got Freddie out. We had to tie him with a big old manila life-saving rope and hoist him from the top floor hallway up through the scuttle cover onto the roof, which is where we all were. And they had to take him down via tower ladder. He never worked again after that, not in the field. He did recover and he survived. We both ended up in the hospital that night. Ed Koch came to visit us and everything else. It was quite a dramatic story. And he's alive today. I'm 63. He's probably 75 now. He's probably something like that. And he's still alive. He's got 2 boys that were on a job, and he's a grandpa and everything else. And that turned out to be a great event. Well, but a message about knowing Mayday, about having a radio or not having a radio. And why did you give a Mayday? Because I didn't have a radio. I was unable to give a radio. Impossible to give a Mayday.
For those departments that still don't equip their people with radios, there's a message for you.
Shame on you. Shame on
you. You know what? Don't even talk Mayday because you can't even call it. You better be training your people. But, God, this needs to be one of those, like we do those other shows about what you need to know, and we just talk about different topics. We need to do more of these, the best moments. And because there's so many right now, there's something I'm thinking of. And, we always try to end these, between 30 and 45 minutes ish, so people can.
I hope you wrote that idea down before that I mentioned. I said, write that down. It's good for another show.
I've got it written down. Yeah. But that being said, I guess the message to our followers, John, to the people that we're honored that tune in and listen, find your moment. We're talking about the best moments. Find your moment. You probably already had that. I always ask that question. Do you remember the phone call? Did you get the email? Do you remember when you got notified? Do you remember when you graduated academy? Do you remember your first fire? Do you remember your first time riding backwards? Do you remember the first time you actually rode in a jump seat? And now how the siren sounded differently than when you're outside in traffic as a civilian. It's blown the opposite way, and people are looking at you. And
the first day in the front seat.
Oh, the first time, really, truly, not just acting up, but serving that position. There's so many wonderful, great, as you will, best moments. Don't blow them off. This career flies by. We talked about this the other day. In the blink of an eye, you're like, God, it was just like I hear all the time. It was just like yesterday. I was in the academy. Well, you know what? It was just like yesterday. So find your moment. Enjoy the hell out of it, man. This is the coolest job in the world, the best job in the world. Volunteer career, don't matter. Being a firefighter is the coolest thing in the world. Find those moments, right? Find those moments.
Absolutely.
All right. If they want to get a hold of you, email, buddy.
Chief John Salka at gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. And we want to wish you a very safe and happy holiday season. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And that being said, we always ask you at the end of all of our shows to please keep the men and women, especially this holiday season, and our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Take care, be careful, and God bless you.